Today is May 8th, 2021. My name is Charles Suter. Today I'm presenting part 5 of my Self-Esteem series. Today's presentation is titled Becoming Good Enough. My main message may come as a surprise to you, but you are already good enough as you are right now, so start living. Too many people grow up feeling not okay about themselves because somehow they have come to believe they're not good enough. This belief that one is not good enough tends to develop during childhood from well-meaning parents or authority figures who demand high standards from their children and use belittlement improperly in an attempt to motivate young children to strive to meet these lofty standards. Sometimes the child's peers will make fun of a child's overt weaknesses, and the public embarrassment reinforces the notion that the child is somehow inferior or deficient. There are many ways for a child to develop the erroneous belief that they are not okay, and these reasons are often linked to real or imagined weaknesses. Thus, only in those rare instances when the child has sufficiently hidden their weaknesses or risen to the standard of the authority figure or their peers do they get to feel good about themselves. This childhood conditioning leaves the child permanently damaged psychologically. Once the child develops the fundamental belief that they are not good enough, unless they can adequately cover up their weaknesses or perform at some arbitrarily high standard, only then do they get to feel good about themselves. This presentation makes the case that everyone is fundamentally okay just as they are. No remedy is needed to fix what isn't broken. All a person who feels inferior needs to do is shift their focus away from their inner struggle to be perfect or to correct their perceived weaknesses so they can feel okay, is to shift those energies outward to living the life they want. Proposition 1. Having weaknesses does not make you deficient, it just makes you human. Everyone has some weaknesses, even those people who appear to have none. Having some weaknesses does not mean there's anything wrong with you. Deficiency is a mental state of mind and nothing else. No one is born perfect with no weaknesses. Not every weakness is visible. In fact, most weaknesses are invisible. Not every weakness is obvious or even known. And in fact, most weaknesses don't even manifest themselves until a person is put into a crucible. It is the children with obvious weaknesses, though, through no fault of their own, that suffer the most distressful feelings of inferiority and not okayness. While this seemingly patently unfair, it is a fact of life. And for those who are unfortunate to have this mental burden placed upon them, it will take them longer to shrug off these irrational beliefs and recover from a distorted self-image and to restore their self-esteem. Fortunately, it is easier to recover from false mental beliefs than to correct physical weakness that just might not even be correctable. Proposition 2. Once you acknowledge your okayness, then you get to have choices on how to make a life for yourself. A life based on what you want and not what you feel you have to do to feel okay. A quality life is based upon the choices you make, the goals you set, the actions you take. Weaknesses might limit some choices, but you still have plenty of good choices with the options that you do have. Everyone has enough choices to enable them to find all the happiness they need and deserve. The purpose of these self-esteem presentations is to convince you that you're okay just as you are. This assertion might be hard for you to believe. You might prefer that your physical mind-body were different, or that your weaknesses were reversed into strengths, but the sooner you accept the reality of your okayness, the sooner you can begin to live your life as a good enough person. You nor anyone else is ever going to be perfect, and in some ways everyone is equally imperfect. Just accept and acknowledge these two fundamental truths. Number 1, you're good enough to be exactly who you are right now, and also you have every right or incentive to try to improve what you have right now. Become the best version of yourself that you can. And number two, given that you are good enough, what are the real hard life aspirations that you have, and what are you going to do about fulfilling them? Stop spending any more trying to become good enough and devote your life to becoming the person you were meant to be. Proposition 3. As I've said, you are good enough just as you are, so start making some real life choices that will make a difference in your life. Don't use the fictitious notion that you are not good enough as an excuse. Instead of making yourself good enough, spend those energies making your life good. Shift your focus outward to what you want out of life and get to work. Get on to work on it right now. A good enough person is anyone with a healthy self-esteem. Anyone who doesn't spend any more time trying to create imaginary preconditions to allow themselves to feel good enough to be accepted by their significant others. A person with a healthy self-esteem accepts the fact that they're not perfect, acknowledges that they have some weaknesses, and just like everyone else, and even despite those weaknesses, they emphasize their strengths to get what they want out of life. Their attention is directed outward to their aspirations, to their goals, and they spend not a moment lamenting what they don't have because they find ways to compensate with the limited possibilities still available to them. My final message: life doesn't have to be a struggle to make yourself feel good enough. As I've said repeatedly, you're good enough already. Life was never meant to be a struggle, but instead to be lived fully, enjoying the one life you're entitled to live. Don't waste your time lamenting what you want but don't have, or what you have that you don't want. Instead, start fresh with a new mental outlook that acknowledges that you, like everyone else, is not perfect, that you have your share of weaknesses, blemishes, along with strengths. But for all practical purposes, you are good enough just as God created you. Once you accept the notion of essential goodness, you have a life to live. So get on with the business of living the best life that you are capable of creating for yourself, and waste not another minute striving to live the fiction that you must continually meet some arbitrary standard before you are permitted to feel good about yourself. You are already good enough just as you are. That's all for now. Remember to stay positive. You'll be healthier, happier, and live longer.